Hey, it's David. Let's stop talking about the rear mudguard and actually do something about it. Procrastination will get you every time. The amount of time I've put into thinking about this rear mudguard, I could have built a couple of dozen mudguards from scratch. Okay, slight exaggeration, but really not as much as you'd think. So it's going on the bike, and if it's not the best way of mounting it, then it's not the best way. I can always rebuild it, and the process is to do the process and finish the process. You can revisit once you've done that. All this thinking is just going to kill you. So I'm still at it, I'm still procrastinating. Let's get down to business. Last time I'd made up a couple of brackets for clamping onto here. They're not ideal, they're made slightly oversized, but I've turned that into an advantage rather than disadvantage, because I am actually going to rubber mount these. I'm going to just put a little bit of rubber inner tube inside them, which will bring them up to size and provide a little bit of damping for the rear mudguard, because we're not V-twins alike, they do tend to vibrate a bit. So what I've done is I've drilled a couple of holes in one, and I've made up a mounting plate here for the rear mudguard. Right. It's a little bit Heath Robinson, but it works, and it needs a lot of work. I've deliberately left things oversized and untrimmed at this point in time so that I could see where it's going. So what we've got is I've cut a section of mudguard out of the piece I chopped off, and because the curve pretty well matches the actual mudguard, this is going to sit inside it. We've got a simple bolt. These two bolt together, and at the moment, as you can see, they're just a little bit loose, even fully tightened up. So I either need to cut and re-weld, or simply put some rubber inside to bring that up to size. I've got a spacer, and there's a nut on the other side just holding this in. Now I've created a relief in there so that it doesn't touch the mudguard, but in fact it never actually really does, but it does allow just that little bit of extra working space. So what I need to do now is to make up one like this for the other side, and then see how that fits, because the other side is slightly different because the wheel, there's a little bit more gap between the wheel and the tube here. This gap here is bigger because there's more room allowed for the actual final drive coming up this side. So this is a little bit further out than this is, which has nothing here taking up a great deal of space. So let's move the bike out so we can get to the other side. First things first is to get these connected up. Now, as you can see, so that's a very loose fit, which is why I need to take up some space. The reason I went with this is that it allows me a little bit of movement backwards and forwards, which will allow me to move the mudguard closer or further away from the wheel, depending on the tyre, depending on how much actual clearance it allows me. So it's a little bit of extra fudge factor in building the mudguard. So let's get some holes drilled in these so I can get a nut and bolt through them. Then let's make up the connector plate for the mudguard. In drilling that through, this weld here cracked open, so I've just ground it out, and I'm going to re-weld it from here. So the weld on this side is fine, but where I'd ground away here and I hadn't actually welded it on this side, it obviously weakened the metal a little too much. So, and quickly re-welded. few touch-ups needed here and there, but that's generally true of the whole piece. All the bits need finishing off. This is just the rough fit, the first fit, to make sure all the bits actually work together. Right, just going to interject into this video at this point. I'm having to film this in bits and pieces, trying to fit it around other things. And the fact is, my fabrication skills aren't great. I'm making no claims that they are. But it means I'm taking far too long to do anything in particular. Now, it doesn't really matter. I'm doing this in my own time. I'm not being paid for it. I've not got other things which I could be getting paid for, which I'm using that time for. So this is my own free time I'm using. And if it takes me an hour or it takes me 10 hours to do a particular job, it doesn't really matter. But it does affect you guys because I'm just taking so long to get this filmed. So I apologise for that. And I also apologise if these videos are a little bit disjointed, because when I'm doing something on this, I'm filming a bit, I'm using some of what I'm filming, I'm not using all of it because it doesn't, you know, I'm backstepping and so forth. But anyway, back to the point. They're probably a bit disjointed because I am filming at different times and I'm probably going to jump from things and there'll be bits missed and so forth. So I apologise for that. I'm going to try and correct that for the next video and for the rest of this one. So let's get back onto this. I'm going to summarise more for my own benefit of where I am, and let's get some work done. So I've got this bracket cut back down, re-welded and clamped so that it's tight on here. The next step is to take this piece of cut out mudguard and to cut it and fit it so it sits here. And what I want to do here is to create two curved mounts on which the mudguard will sit. So it'll sit like that. You can see I've already mocked up this one on the other side, so I know that the principle works. And as you can see, the curve here will give me something to mount the mudguard to, although it will get trimmed back because I don't want too much metal under here. I am thinking that with the shorty mudguard, there's a fair chance I might be able to leave it on under the longer mudguard, because the longer mudguard is going to get a fair bit of use in the current weather now that it's starting to rain a lot more. Give it a couple of months, it'll stop raining for winter, but then there'll be a lot of salt on the roads, so this will have to be kept sprayed down. And anyway, let's get on with the build. Doesn't have to be exactly in the centre because I'm intending to trim the sides back, and I'll measure out from the centre wherever I deem the centre to be when I do that. Right, now I just need to bend this bracket so that this lies flat and this curves that way. Those holes are too far up, I need them to be down a bit, so I'm going to re-drill further down and I'm going to close these holes up with the welder. You can never get enough welding practice. So let's try that again. Holes are now a little bit closer to the edges than I would like, but I can always reinforce them, so it doesn't worry me overly. Just a spacer for the time being, and we'll get adjusted as we see fit. So this is the profile of the mount as it stands. This is just loosely done up, it needs some tightening and fitting. Now, the moment there's quite a bit of space here between the tyre, that will change depending on how far up and down this slides. And I can adjust the distance by adjusting the amount of spacer that I put in here. And obviously use a longer nut. But I need to leave enough clearance that this is probably about right. So we've got at least a finger's width in here, and then the mudguard will come down the top and sit on here, and this will get cut off wherever is appropriate when I put the actual mudguard on. So brackets are just roughly in place, and I've got a screwdriver just jamming the mudguard down to give it tension against the tyre. Now I've pulled the brackets down so that it does touch the tyre. Tyre clearance is controlled by how much up you move these, and as you can see I've got quite a bit of movement. I can just push this up pretty much until this hits that, so I've got that much clearance, so this is not an issue, it being this close. These obviously need finishing, they need the angles correcting so that they bend in the right places. So you can see here that this is further away from the tyre than this, which means at the moment this has no spacers in, and this has a couple of nuts just to push it over so that it actually sits on the tyre. But so this is what I'm just playing with at the moment. You can see the tyre, the mudguard's not lined up very well at the moment, needs to be a bit further down. But so, adjusting and playing details, mark those off, cut off any excess bracket that there might be inside, and then decide exactly where this mudguard is going to end. Cut off the excess. As I say, mark these, mark where it's going to sit on the mudguard this way, and weld them together. But that is going to be a job for the next video. Right, so we're slowly getting there on the build. It's taking more time than I would like, but that's just the way of builds. But we are making progress, so that's a good thing. Now next time I'm looking to have this mudguard cut and tacked into place, so we'll see what it's like, and then it'll need quite a bit of work to actually finish it, but we're getting close. So thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you guys again next time.